Retired Pope Benedict XVI had an impressive record as a teacher and defender of the basics of Catholic faith. Yet he's likely to go down in history books as the first pope in almost 600 years to resign. Soon after resigning, he already started to look frailer. When a newly elected Pope Francis visited his predecessor, video images released by the Vatican underscored the diminishing energy Pope Benedict had said led to his resignation. During his 8 years as head of the Universal Church, Pope Benedict used virtually every medium at his disposal: books and Twitter, sermons and encyclicals to catechize the faithful. He used his skills as a college professor to teach and provide insightful commentary on the foundational beliefs and practices of Christianity. And he showed how basic principles like faith and reason, love and truth are not at odds in Christianity.
What Benedict does in his theology is to synthesize the two. You get love and truth coming together in a higher synthesis, and I think that's a really important thing.
Under Pope Benedict's oversight, the Vatican continued to highlight the Church's moral teaching on issues such as end-of-life medical care, marriage, and homosexuality. But the Pope's message to society at large focused less on single issues and more on the importance of having Christ as one's guide. And he insisted Christianity should not be seen as a list of don'ts, but as a series of yeses that affirm and lead to true joy and happiness through an ever closer relationship with Jesus.
I saw him as someone who was an apostle of joy and saw the Christian life as the key to fulfillment. What was making people unhappy, and you hear the same thing in Pope Francis, what's making people unhappy is this flattening out of life. You know, when you're just locked in a secularist world, that denies the deepest longing of the heart. There, Ratzinger was very much Augustinian, and I think that's a large part of his legacy as well.
While still in his 30s, he had served as an influential advisor during the Second Vatican Council. And as Pope, he made it a priority to correct what he saw as overly expansive interpretations of Vatican II in favor of readings that stressed the Council's continuity with church tradition. In a 2005 speech, Pope Benedict rejected what he called a hermeneutic of discontinuity and rupture in interpreting Vatican II as a radical break with the past. The Pope called instead for reading the Council through a hermeneutic of reform in continuity with Catholic tradition.
Even as a theologian, as a professor, his view of Vatican II was that of a council in great continuity with the tradition, especially when he sees how the other type of interpretation, which is rupture, a discontinuity, has brought some effects on the faith life of the community. He seems to be saying, look, this is not just hermeneutics. Look at the effects. What has happened to the church? What has happened to parishes? What has happened to churches that have espoused this vision of Vatican II as a total break from the rest of the history? And I think it's not just theological, it's not just hermeneutical, it is also pastoral for him.
Pope Benedict also made historic concessions to Catholics who objected to some of the teachings of the Second Vatican Council and the liturgical reform that it commissioned. He widened permission to use the extraordinary or pre-Vatican II form of the Mass, and a short time later extended a hand to the Traditionalist Society of St. Pius X.
Benedict XVI condemning one way of interpreting the Council, these famous hermeneutics of rupture, saying this is wrong. You cannot think or allow people to think that the Church begins with Vatican II. There is a past, and this past is determining the Church, and you cannot just get rid of it.
Besides lifting the excommunications of 4 of the Society's bishops, Pope Benedict launched a long and intense dialogue with the group. In the end, though, the talks broke down. Meanwhile, Pope Benedict took great care to celebrate the modern liturgy in a reverent style, and occasionally used vestments and followed customs that had not been used in decades. He also created pastoral provisions for former Anglicans to be in full communion with Rome, while preserving some of their spiritual, theological, and liturgical heritage.
He's done a lot to show how the liturgy can be presented in a way that is really reverential, that is God-centred and not man-centred. And I think there's a sense in which he believes very much that it's possible to be a Catholic and have lots of different traditions within the Catholic Church, as long as you're all in communion with each other and as long as there's the same apostolic faith.
One of the biggest tests of his papacy came after a lecture at Germany's University of Regensburg. His quoting a Christian medieval emperor who criticized violence in Islam set off strong protests in the Muslim world. Pope Benedict apologized that his words had offended Muslims, and soon an international group of Muslim scholars and leaders invited him to launch a new dialogue initiative called The Common Word, to look at the teachings that Christians and Muslims do share.
His speech in Regensburg that caused such a stir really was about faith and reason. It wasn't meant to be about Islam per se. That's what got all the attention, but it was about faith and reason and the harmony between faith and reason in the Catholic tradition. That's obviously central to his whole understanding of what Christianity is about.
Pope Benedict traveled to 26 countries during his 8-year pontificate, from meeting with Holocaust survivors at Auschwitz to praying with survivors of the 9/11 terrorist attacks in the United States, to weathering a dramatic storm with young people during World Youth Day in Madrid. The Pope was close to the people and put his reputation for meekness and humility on the world stage. Pope Benedict had planned to live a hidden life in retirement, and to a large extent he did. But to the delight and surprise of many, he appeared at events with Pope Francis several times, including for the opening of the Holy Door in St. Peter's Basilica in 2015. Pope Francis embraced him before opening the door and entering the Basilica to inaugurate the Year of Mercy. Then, with the assistance of an aide, Pope Benedict II crossed the threshold.